Shabbat Shalom on this Parashat Ekev. As we learned before, Ekev means because. Ekev is also the word for heel. And so we are on the heels of the last Parsha, leading to the next Parsha, as we continue our journey through the desert, making our way to the land of promise. Continuing Moshe's speech, his grand speech. Unbelievable that a man who had a lisp or a stutter, who said he couldn't possibly represent us, has come this far himself along with us. Parshat Ekev. As I mentioned before, Parshat Ekev also includes V'achalta v'savata uveirachta. You shall eat, and you shall be satisfied, and you shall bless. Which is the proof text of why we eat first and then say the bracha after, as opposed to the other way around. However, if you say motzi before, that covers everything, that you don't have to say other brachot along the way. So, what am I going to be talking about this morning? As you can guess, none of those things. This morning, I'm going to be concentrating on a pasuk from this parsha that you are very, very familiar with, because it is part of our regular lexicon in our daily speech. What is it? Drum roll, please. Okay, I don't have it up, but here we go. Hodiach ki lo halechem levado yichya adam. Know that man does not live by bread alone. Now, this on the surface might appear to be a very, very simple thing to unpack. Of course, Rashi says that everything is simple to understand if we look at only that angle. However, we're going to be looking at it, of course, from a psycho-spiritual Hasidic angle the further we get into things. How does this lead to... okay. So you notice in red, both in the Hebrew and in the English, we say all the time, man does not live by bread alone, right? However, that's not what it says in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, it says, know that the man, ha-adam, does not live by ha-lechem, the bread only. So, let's do this. We're talking about bread, and I happen to live in the house with a master baker who helped me put this part of the presentation together. And we're going to take it from seed to bread, and then we're going to see how this maps on the sfirot, how this maps on our understanding in a mythical way of how the first idea came into existence and then gave birth to us and everything that is. Okay, for those of you bakers out there, if you have a correction for me, well, put it in the chat. Here's how the seed turns into our bread. And by the way, you might want to Google Hannah Teferet, because she has a wonderful song about the wisdom of the seed. First of all, growing the wheat. I got to move this over a little bit so I can see it better. There we go. Growing the wheat. Everything starts in the field. Wheat grows as a grass, producing seeds full of life force. Harvesting these seeds collects their potential for transformation. Number 2, milling into flour. And there's an old-time flour mill. The seeds are ground into flour on their journey to becoming food. And then we have mise en place, which is a fancy way of saying preparation. The baker gathers ingredients, flour, water, salt, and leaven, such as yeast or sourdough starter. And then, of course, we've got the mixing. Flour is combined with water and salt and leaven. The yeast awakens, turning the lifeless flour clay into living dough. It's alive. Fermentation is next. Yeast and bacteria consume sugars, producing acids, alcohol, and carbon dioxide. These byproducts create flavor, aroma, and air pockets, giving the dough life. Then we got the necessary to dividing. Although Renee reminds me sometimes she uses that big lump for one purpose, for one thing, but sometimes the dough gets divided into portions for loaves, rolls, or pizza bases. This makes shaping easier and consistent. Pre-shaping. Each portion gets a preliminary shape, round, oblong, or another form, and rests so the gluten can relax. All right. I love relaxed gluten. Then you got your final shaping. The dough takes its final form, baguette, loaf, or pizza base, or here in our image, of course, of braids of challah. Precision here ensures proper structure and appearance. All right, coming into a landing, we've got panning. The dough is placed in pans, baskets, or in baking sheets, ready for its final rise. And then proofing. Now this is, I understand, is not always done, but however, the dough rises again, trapping carbon dioxide and developing flavor. This stage is crucial for texture and taste. And finally, we have the baking, and during baking, the bread rises and the yeast dies, having completed its mission of raising the dough. Then my favorite part, cooling and eating. Bread must cool before slicing. Oh, I think that's the hardest part of Renee's bread in our house. Looking at that beautiful loaf on the table and you not being able to touch it until it cools completely, because bread must cool before slicing. Cooling lets the structure set, ensuring perfect texture. The journey is complete and the bread is ready to eat. So, there is the journey. From the field to the table. What it doesn't answer the question to is, where did the wheat come from? Where did the seed for the wheat come from? Aha! I would venture a guess that this might give us a clue. Here, of course, is an image of the Sfirot. In the highest level, which is unattainable and we cannot relate to it, be in relationship with Keter, the highest of the highs. Keter is unknowable, unnameable. But Keter, when God had an impulse to know other, K-N-O-W, ideas came into the world. Through wisdom, and then things separated out through Bina and Da'at, and then from Chesed and Gevurah, things began to take shape and form. The seed is a kernel of an idea, pun intended, flows propelled by divine energy. So there is power in the seed. The divine energy goes through stages, all of the other Sfirot, and then gives birth through Malchut into our world. So therein is the pinball machine of reality. Energy bouncing off energy, all interrelating with one another. As we go from no thing to many things. Adonai Tzvaot, the master of diversity. Yah wants to be in relationship. And so here we are. Work, labor, bread. A poem by Chaim Nachman Bialik, the poet laureate. Who shall save us from hunger? Who shall feed us plenty of bread? And who shall give us a glass of milk to drink? Whom to thank? Whom to bless? The work and the labor. We, my friends, as you well know, are in partnership with the Holy Blessed One. Bread, after all, does not grow on trees. And we say the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Giving thanks to the one who brings bread from the land, but bread does not grow directly from the land, as you and I well know. And saying a bracha, what does it do? It releases the energy, those divine sparks that are in what we are about to eat, which is then food for the soul. Ki lo al halechem levado yichyeh ha'adam. No one lives by bread alone. The bread, the man, that is the larger archetype. Moshe teaching us that the power to keep us alive does not reside in the purely physical properties of bread or any other food, but in the potential God has placed within that physical food to sustain us. Ha lechem levado. The bread alone nourishes our body, our physical life. The divine sparks hidden within is food for the soul. Eating with mindful attention releases and returns the sparks back to their source. And when we say the bracha, it aids in its journey from Yah to the wheat, to the bread, which we have made with God's assistance. And we eat it, and we do the holy work, and the sparks get returned to their source. On the Shabbat Ekev, may every bite of food we take serve to release the divine sparks of holiness trapped within. And may that physical and spiritual nourishment empower us in the repair of our broken world. Shabbat Shalom.